Good morning, Internet. My name is Jay, and today is the day I finally talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. Created by Christian artist and animator Scott Cawthon, Five Nights at Freddy's is a series that needs no introduction, and in this video series, I plan to review all 6 of its original installments. This will be part 1 where I discuss FNAF 1 and its prequel, so without further ado, let's just get right into the review. Oh yeah, also, sorry for not uploading for a while. I plan to get back into the swing of things in the next few months, and especially in 2026. Five Nights at Freddy's 2014, or FNAF 1 as we'll call it for short, has a very simple gameplay setup. There's a survivalist approach to its design, with tools to defend yourself, a threat that said defense is needed for, and the power meter. The animatronics are our main threat in this whole situation, and they get increasingly harder to deal with as the nights go on. This comes at a cost with the game's replayability in my opinion, since it makes nights 1 through 2 feel mind-numbingly boring if you already beaten the whole game. In hindsight, it makes sense that those levels aren't intended to be revisited, but I've played games before that managed to still make their first levels feel memorable at least. Sadly, this game just isn't really one of them for me. That is, if we're talking about it from a gameplay standpoint. I have some thoughts about the atmosphere I'll get into in just a second. Nights 5 through 7 are probably my favorite of the game, as when the animatronics get more aggressive, it is a truly suspenseful experience. One moment I'm in the rhythmic flow of checking cams and flashing door 1, and the next, Chica is at my right door, Bonnie is at my left door, Markiplier. The point is, this game is at its best when animatronic AI levels are cranked up. You can really feel that immersive level of stress to not get jumpscares and night guard when this game is being extra tricky. Speaking of jumpscares, I love the ones for Chica, Freddy, and Bonnie. Sorry Foxy, you'll always be my favorite animatronic design, but this is just not it. I really think these animations here have yet to be topped by the games I've played so far in this series. They just so perfectly capture what I imagine it looks like being eaten by these guys. They also got me good a few times on my first attempts. Shout out to Chica for literally not showing when I flashed the light at her. One more thing I want to mention about the gameplay that really keeps it from being something I highlight with this game is the night lengths. All the nights in this game go on for 9 whole minutes, and as someone who's beaten Ultimate Custom Night with its 4.5 minute ones, this just feels excessive. Excessively long nights plague this entry in the series greatly, leaving even most fun nights to drag on just that little bit too long. On one hand, it feels more immersive and definitely helps sell how this job would feel in real life, but it's just not my cup of tea for a game like this. This is further cemented with the power mechanics since it feels almost imbalanced. Having the nights be shorter while also having the power drain faster would keep the panic way up when compared to this slow burn where animatronics only ever threaten you at hours like 4 to 6 a.m. Again, I like the gameplay a lot in concept, but in practice there's too many factors that slow down what could otherwise be perfect. This is fixed straight away with later entries and especially with Ultimate Custom Night, but comparing FNAF 1 to those games really puts it into perspective how slow it is. Going back to the visuals and sound though, I genuinely love the work Scott did here. Although I feel a little iffy on the animatronic designs when comparing them to actual real-life performers, the texture and withering are spot on. Each character has a little element or two that really makes them stand out while also keeping things on theme. Freddy is the singer with his nice hat, mic, and bow tie, Bonnie plays the guitar, Chica has her cupcake/bib, and Foxy is under maintenance. The office has a great look to it as well, and I especially enjoy scattered elements that give it all such a used vibe. Sounds and music for this game are kind of rare if we're not talking about the crisp door noises or crunchy camera audio, but I think it's safe to say this game's ambience is iconic. The ambience and overall design of everything brings this timeless atmosphere that I can only describe as magical now in the present day. Often the most positive words for this game come from comparing it to today's mascot horror scene, and that mainly seems to be from just how unique a mascot horror game was at the time. The gameplay doesn't really fit the timeless masterpiece criteria for me, especially not as much as the art and sound design, but that doesn't mean the game plays bad. Using minor adjustments I've seen in fan games like FNAF in real time, the game can actually have a really great flow with excellent levels of horrifying backstory. But overall, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 had a pretty strong impact on the indie horror scene, and a good one at that, so it's hard to blame it for those minor blemishes. It's like going up to an elderly person and criticizing their walking form, which I've done to my grandpa all too many times. So did FNAF 1 really become popular only due to YouTubers and hype, or was it actually a masterpiece that deserved its acclaim? Somewhere in the middle for me. It definitely has quite a list of visible seams, but for its time of release, I can totally see how it would have had such positive reception. The concept is frightening, the gameplay is beautifully simplistic, and under our stuffed animatronic friends, there was piles of lore to be found. But anyways, that's my 2 cents on FNAF 1, and speaking of 2s... Right off the bat, before I even talk about the gameplay, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 through 5 had the most fun teaser era for any indie game I can think of. For all the original 7 games Scott Cawthon made for the series, there were teasers that would be uploaded to his website with cryptic messages, and although I never really got to experience this for myself, I can only imagine the hype that was brewing for fans at the idea of this game getting a sequel. FNAF 2 improves on the gameplay speed/flow immensely from the first game. Nights are 7 minutes, the camera flips way faster, and the same can apply to the new mechanic, the Freddy mask. I have a lot to say on this one, but first, what is this game about? Well, most of you know this installment actually includes the biggest cast of any FNAF game before Pizzeria Simulator or Ultimate Custom Night at 12 characters. This is a huge part of why it can be tough as hell sometimes. The original 4 animatronics from FNAF 1 are back with a lot of withering and rage bait mechanics. Technically, this would be our first encounter with them in timeline order. The extra 8 are Golden Freddy, the toy animatronics Mangle, Balloon Boy, and the puppet. RWQFSFA. All of these characters work pretty much the same except for the puppet and Foxy, but with minor differences. Some kill you if you don't put on the mask, one will disable your lights, and the Withered Trio. I have a really hard time with things like this in video games, and really any games for that matter. On one hand, it's a fun and tough deal to put on your mask as soon as you see them standing in your office, but on the other hand, why do they only give you half a second to react on nights 5 through 7? The nights up until 5 feel fun, fair, suspenseful, and rewarding to skilled players, but anything after is just actual RNG or reflexes. This is a shame because I feel like I'm repeating my exact points on FNAF 1 when I say this game is... It ditches the power management but removes the doors completely, keeping things fair but still scary. There's also a flashlight that adds brand new depth to the camera system with no risk of running your power out, just the flashlight battery. But the Wither animatronics and Toy Freddy on night 6 or 7 just kind of ram into most of that. Actually, it's not even much their fault if we're talking night 5, the puppet makes cameras obsolete outside of its own camera. With the puppets mechanic, you have to wind up the music box before it runs out, and if it does, you're dead. Scott decided to put the wind button on only the prize corner camera, so with later nights, it's literally the only one you'll want to watch. I think having this button on other cameras would make things feel far less unfair on later nights because it would still be an extra task to worry about regardless. Don't get me wrong though, these mechanics for the characters are really good in concept and they make sense. In practice, however, it's just a little too imbalanced. You can chalk it up to a skill issue on my part, but many FNAF experts will tell you the Golden Freddy challenge is literally unbeatable 9 out of 10 times. Toy Chica, the Mangle, and Balloon Boy are all good. I've barely struggled with their mechanics. Everyone else can go die in a fire. While FNAF 2 might end up as my least favorite from a gameplay standpoint, the gameplay is not really all that bad. I'm just airing out my negatives before I get to something I love about this game. Design, music, and story. This game has a wicked aesthetic, and this cast is actually my favorite of any FNAF game to ever release. Toy animatronics, new, sleek, perfect. Withered animatronics, Mangle, the puppet, Sigmund, scary, old, tall. In all seriousness, I really like how this game presents itself. Great props, good character design, and a more dynamic pizzeria layout in my opinion. Something else that sets this one apart from the first game especially, and a reoccurring trend here going forward, is the death minigame. Every time you get jump scared, there's a chance that you'll get one of these Atari-style playable cutscenes. When put together in order and applying hints from phone calls, this story expands as something so perfectly nestled into the experience. From what I understand, fans collectively found clues, shared theories, and interpreted the story in all sorts of cool ways. I think that mindset is really what Scott envisioned here, to be honest. The story will most likely never be concretely figured out, but the idea that this fandom will live on through countless efforts to do so is so poetic. FNAF 2 is flawed, but it started something even bigger out of an already growing fandom. Fans now had more to chew on, and the creations they made with it themselves wouldn't be possible without this. FNAF 2 was less of a game and more so a second step to something so interesting that I would have loved to be a part of. Whoa, I did not mean to get that sentimental over the Scary Bear game. Overall, I had a blast with these first two games. Through the good, the bad, and the hairy, I really hope you enjoyed listening to my unfiltered thoughts on these games a whole decade after their release. My plan is to review all the original 6 games as I said before, so stay tuned or click on that link up there when the FNAF 3+4 video comes out. Thanks again so much for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Jay signing off.